Welcome to Infant Toddler Mental Health, Module 3. In Module 1, we talked about typical social emotional development for very young children. In Module 2, we talked about what happens when trauma and toxic stress impacts that typical development. Now in this module, we will explore what caregivers and teachers can do to support very young children and their families in developing positive social emotional competence. What all caregivers do to promote healthy social emotional development is first support the social emotional wellness in all infants and toddlers, even children with disabilities. Then, make every effort to prevent the occurrence or escalation of social emotional problems in infants and toddlers. That's where we intervene early and often. Then, identify and work to remediate problems or concerns. And when necessary, refer children and their families for appropriate mental health services. Recall the pyramid model introduced in Module 1 is an evidence-based model for supporting the social-emotional competence of young children. In this module, we will look at the prevention and treatment levels of the model. Families are children's first and primary teachers. However, research shows that a high percentage of infants and toddlers spend a great deal of time each week in care settings outside of their family and home environments. The research is clear: early experiences last a lifetime. The quality of early experiences is shaped by the individuals with whom infants and toddlers spend their time and by the environments where they spend their time. Evidence demonstrates that high-quality standards for children, professionals, and programs leads to better outcomes for children. As early care and learning professionals, it is critical to offer infants and toddlers positive experiences in every setting in which they spend time in order to ensure positive outcomes for the future. Supporting the social emotional needs of infants and toddlers has a few approaches. First, individualized care. The responsive caregiver facilitates social emotional development by following children's unique rhythms and styles, responding promptly to individual needs, and respecting and accepting children's behaviors and ways of communicating. The responsive caregiver takes cues from each child about when to expand on their initiative, when to guide, when to teach, and when to intervene. An observer might notice the caregivers are individualizing their care because different children may be engaged in different routines or activities at the same time. For example, one child may be receiving a bottle, a couple of children may be napping, and a few children may be playing, either alone or together, in different areas of the room. An observer may also note individualized goals or activities for children on a planning document or curriculum plan. Primary caregiving. Relationships between caregivers and children are crucial in quality child care. It is through close relationships with caregivers that young children learn about the world and who they are. In a primary caregiving model, each child in group care is assigned a primary caregiver. A primary caregiver is principally responsible for the child's care and helps build a positive, continuing, intimate relationship with that child. This also offers family members a consistent child care contact who knows the child well. Teaming is also important. Primary care works best when infant-toddler caregivers team together, support one another, and provide a backup base for security for each other's primary care child. Primary care does not mean exclusive care. It means, however, that all parties know who has a primary responsibility for each child. Small groups and ratios. Many research studies regarding infant and toddler care have shown that small group size and adult-child ratios are key components of quality care. Ratios and group size determine the amount of time a caregiver has to spend with each of the children. Small groups help create a sense of intimacy and safety. A rich dialogue between caregivers and infants is possible in small groups because there are fewer individuals, less noise, and less activity to interfere with the child's ability to learn. Small groups and more staff enable caregivers to build strong relationships with individual children and adapt activities to meet the changing interests, needs, and capacities of the group. Continuity of care. Programs that incorporate the concept of continuity of care strive to keep primary caregivers and children together throughout the 3 years of infancy period, or for the time during that period of the child's enrollment. Frequently switching from one caregiver to another impacts a young child's social-emotional development. Too many changes in caregivers can slow children's development and leave them reluctant to form new relationships. Finally, culturally responsive care. Children develop a sense of who they are and what is important within the context of family and culture. Consistency of care between home and child care is best for the very young child. In order to effectively and genuinely provide continuity of care and implement culturally appropriate practices, caregivers must reflect on their own beliefs and values regarding cultural differences. High-quality programs incorporate practices that reflect the values and beliefs of the families and culture of their community. Using the child's home language, understanding and respecting cultural practices related to daily routines, and engaging in ongoing open communication with the family are examples of such practice. Some infant-toddler programs fully implement a continuity of care model. Many others do not. Regardless of whether or not a program embraces a continuity of care model, there are many things a program can do to support continuity of care for infants and toddlers. This can include remaining with the caregiver as long as possible, and if the child must change caregivers, like moving to a new room, using a longer period of time to make that change, maintaining relationships with the previous caregivers, and visits with those previous caregivers. Depending on your role in a program, you may or may not be able to exert influence over some of these programmatic elements. However, it is important that caregivers are knowledgeable about these elements of program design. It is critical to reflect on how overall program design may impact how teachers, parents, and children feel about a program. Responsive schedules and routines are part of universal approaches or promotional practices. Responsive schedules and routines contribute to the promotion of children's social-emotional development and can also help prevent challenging behaviors that some young children may exhibit. Responsive routines and schedules are designed with close attention to the developmental needs of all children in the setting and are adapted to the needs of individual children. For example, a 6-week-old infant will not have the same eating and sleeping schedule as a 12-month-old. To support families in planning for their own child's schedules and routines, we can help them think through where their child is developmentally, who their child is temperamentally, and the flow of their household. For example, a mother of 2 may wonder how she can help her highly active and intense 20-month-old Tommy, who wants to go outside and play as soon as he wakes from nap, learn to wait for the 4-month-old to finish eating. Her goal is to support Tommy's temperament and also help him to gradually learn to wait a short period of time before playing outdoors. This mother may decide to offer Tommy active play experiences indoors after his nap so that his need for activity is met, even though it is not possible to immediately go outdoors. With his mother's support and through this routine, Tommy can begin to learn ways to tolerate some frustration, which is an important learning task for toddlers. Think about some of the routines that are important in your life. As you think about these important routines, are there some routines that you are more flexible with and some you just cannot live without? How does it feel to you when your routine changes or looks different? How does a consistent routine help you throughout your daily interactions with others, accomplishment of tasks, etc.? Schedules and routines provide infants and toddlers with a sense of security through predictability, and they help them learn about the world. Very quickly, babies discover and embrace their first routines. For example, when an infant cries persistently, her caregiver gently picks her up, saying, "Oh, you're so hungry." The infant quiets as she latches onto the bottle's nipple. In just a few weeks, she's learned a new routine. She feels hungry, she cries, and food is offered, while she's cradled in gentle arms. Infants feel secure and confident within the framework of nurturing and predictable caregiving routines. Routines can help toddlers adjust to new situations. Daily routines also help toddlers say goodbye to parents and feel safe and secure within a nurturing network of family members and caregivers. For example, always reading the same book together in the same cozy corner of the toddler room helps a child prepare for the difficult separation from her mother. This predictable, intimate time with a mother can help a child give the courage to let her mother leave. When we hear the word curriculum, we sometimes think of teaching specific concepts such as ABCs, colors, or shapes. For infants and toddlers, transitions and routines that arise from their care are the curriculum. It is during these routines that relationships are promoted and learning takes place. By transitions, we mean the time of change that occurs in a child's life or day, such as when a young child begins in a new child care program, or just when a group of children move from one experience to another, for example, from indoor play to outdoor play. By routines, we mean the regularly occurring events a young child experiences during a day and the way we do them day by day. They can be thought of as the individual experiences that make up each day. Routines that generally happen in a similar way each day provide children with a sense of predictability and security. For example, if the daily routine upon arrival is to snuggle with a caregiver and look at a book, even a young infant will come to expect this. A toddler can understand that the meal routine begins with hand washing. When the same thing happens day after day, several times a day, routines become predictable, and infants and toddlers learn to feel more secure and know what to expect. When we talk about schedules, we tend to mean what time we do something. For infants and toddlers, however, we think of schedules in terms of how many hours between eating and when and how long they sleep. Generally, with infants and toddlers, we want to focus on the sequence or order for the routines of care. It is more important for the very young child that we offer a predictable sequence of routines each day than it is that we try to keep to a time schedule. We should focus more on how things happen rather than the time and allow children to set the pace. For example, each newborn develops his own special daily rhythms and patterns for eating, sleeping, and alert wakefulness. Some babies leisurely suck and take short cat naps during an extended feeding. Others quickly digest a generous feeding and then fall into a deep sleep. Routines develop naturally when we follow the baby's lead. Here are some ways you can use routines to support social-emotional development of infants and toddlers. Infants and toddlers learn about people and the way the world works through their daily routines. Posting a schedule with pictures or photos of the day's events and routines at the child's eye level and drawing their attention to it helps children understand sequence of events and what comes next. Reviewing past activities with toddlers and noticing or acknowledging when a toddler seems to be thinking about an event from the past will also help them make important connections and sense of the structure of their day. Inviting infants and toddlers to take part in daily routines demonstrates to them that they matter and lets them play an active role in the many activities of the day. For example, let an infant hold a clean diaper or invite a toddler to set napkins on the table. Ask families about their routines at home. Routines are some of the most inherently cultural practices in a child's life. Different families have different practices regarding routines. Asking families about their routines and trying to incorporate the ways that they care for their very young child creates cultural responsiveness and continuity in a program. Use eating time for toddlers as an opportunity for emotional connections between adults and children, and between and among children. Observe children during feeding and eating times. Are the children enjoying the experience? Provide pictures of family members or other interesting pictures on the wall at the baby's eye level in the diapering area. Make diapering a special time for adults to be emotionally present with children, following their cues. Use encouraging and positive words at all times. Use talk such as first and next and words that are comforting. Encourage children to participate in the routine. Stand and pull up their own pants. Coordinate toilet learning with the family to provide continuity for the child from home to program. Never force toddlers to use or stay on the toilet. Use diapering and toileting times as opportunities for emotional connections between adults and children.